Past players, past legends, past legends.
Welcome back, and this is part 2 of our interview with Timmy Ginever, and we ended off last time. We'd done the brewery, and we'd also started about how you met your illustrious meeting with your now wife, Ange, Timmy G. There's a story with Mr. Bojangles on memory, Timmy G.
Oh, that's correct. And
Yes.
it was a very popular nightclub at the Newmarket Hotel,
Yes.
corner of North Terrace and West Terrace, and a beautiful old building it is now. And when we went up there, I went up there as a young man, and I could not believe, got up there and, you sort of listening to probably Tainted Love and, maybe a bit of Jack and Diane or something floating around like that. And I remember I'd seen Ange about 2 weeks earlier at the club. She was talking to a couple of the lads that played the 19s, and we were chatting. Anyway, she came up chatting away, and I find out later on that she was actually there that night looking for one of the other players. So it was just my bad luck that I was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Call persistence, Timmy G, I reckon.
That's a hard tag, mate. A very hard tag. Mate.
So she may say a similar thing.
Yes.
She was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Mate, welcome back for part 2, and obviously we wanted to finish off a bit on your career night, but yeah, certainly cutting the rug there at Bojangles sounds like a bit of fun for you and the boys.
Oh, it was, yeah. It's like everybody sort of gathers along to where later on in life it ended up being places like the Venue and Lenny's on a Sunday and things like that.
Yes.
So just after the Bay Disco. And, so they were all really good nights. Pecker's Disco used to run on Thursday.
Yes,
night.
that's right.
Yeah. So
And
Sam's, of course. But, you had some different bouncers at Sam's, didn't you?
Yeah, the late, great Jimmy Teal, Johnny Wynn, yes,
Stazza.
Stazza.
And Terry Lindblom did a bit too,
Yeah,
didn't he?
and Neil Craig
He
was
was the
actually
firewood.
the firewood fireman there.
Yeah.
Hey, but there it is. Let's go back to Bojangles, though. And, Pete, your aim at Bojangles was to last for the last song of the last song.
Yep.
Was generally about 6:30 in the morning,
Yep.
and it was Bojangles, the last song of the night. You sort of gave each other high fives that you managed
Made
to
it.
last.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many did you make, Timmy? How many of those did you make?
I was too disciplined, mate. We had Sunday morning training. So I couldn't hang around to that late. Oh, dear, yes. No, I don't think I made one.
Let's just say I may have left there rather late with Darren Foster, played a bit at Port and South.
Yeah,
Yes.
Remember Darren well.
Yes, let's just say there may have been 2 females there, and she drove him and got him to Port training on the Sunday morning. And let's just say you certainly hadn't had anything called sleep at that stage. So, yeah.
Yeah, we only got to get through a couple of hours and then you can have all the sleep you want.
Yes.
So that were the days when we were young and silly.
Back in the day.
All right, Timmy G, let's go. So then, as we said about, you've ended up, you're now a Port player. As we said, you should have been a Woodville player. Woodville should have had you and Greg Anderson. What a stuff up. We did speak briefly about that yesterday.
Yep.
So your first league thing, and then you'd had, let's say, probably a learning experience through Russell, and you admit yourself that you made a mistake there. And then let's just say John Cale and the influence of John Cale on you, and John Cale's ability to sell that you were invincible to you guys. And for me, I actually appreciate that more now, because Nord, for mine, finally won a premiership last year when they were nowhere near the best side. And I reckon John Cale got 11 out of 10 out of the Port side for all those years, effectively.
Yeah, I think you're right, Malcolm, in regards to Jack's influence. He just had an ability to make each and every one of us that needed to, play well. I thought he got not the best out of us, he got better out of us. So,
yeah.
That was the thing. You might have had a limit on yourself, but Jack had no limits, and he loved talking about no limits, whether that be on the team, whether it be on the season, whether it be on you as an individual. He just always used to speak about, why limit yourself? Why put a cap on it? And I used to love that language. And I used to think, oh, he's right. And, and he never feared things. And, I've heard other people say, oh, you've got to be careful of this, or this might happen, or whatever. He never, ever tempted the bad fate, if you like. He always tempted the opportunity, the chance to be the best. And he always made sure that you were heading in that direction. So that's what I think I loved about him, because it gave all of us that much confidence. And I saw him talk to players on a Thursday night when, they felt like they should have been in selection, and they might go and front him, and, we're all sitting in the showers or the bath or whatever. And I saw him handle it, and I thought to myself, you hear a lot of people and coaches say, you just got to be honest, you got to be truthful and all the rest of it. I saw Jack probably at times and I've seen coaches talk to players and tell them the truth.
Yep. And
they walk away with that head down. I see Jack say things like, can't believe how close you are. I can't believe how close what you're doing at the moment and how you're doing this and that. He's, another one like that, and I reckon you're in. And they'd walk away, and I could tell they're sort of half thinking, is it the truth or isn't it? But they're going, I think I'm a chance. If you think you're a chance, you're going to play well. And we had some depth, and it's not easy, you'd know probably through history, to win the reserves and the league grand final, but you want them up there as close as that can be.
Yep.
And we had in our run of premierships, we had 2 occasions where the reserves won the flag, and we had another 2 where they were runner-up. So you sort of go, that method worked because everybody believed that they were an opportunist, that they got this chance. And it happened on a couple of occasions where guys got injured or hurt, or, Rowan Smith had his jaw broken and things like that, and guys come into the team that weren't in there the week before, and they're playing flags.
And I think of a couple in that example with just where, as you said, he's almost a master psychologist, and the ability to almost sell bluff, but sell it brilliantly. And I think of a couple of examples there with Adrian Setri, Wayne Marnie, and Ivan Eckerman getting injured with that, and going forward with a corky and strapped to buggery and kicking 3 in the forward pocket to beat Glenelg in a grand final. And just his ability there.
Well, he spoke to, I know Ivan really well, and Ivan said, he copped that corky really early. He's in the rooms. Daryl Carl had ripped the groin off the bone, and he was in the rooms. So it's only 20 back then, and then I think it was Kim Kinnear got knocked out. So Kim comes in because he's out, and they said, one of you's got to go back on the ground. And Daryl looked at Eki and said, I can't even get off the table, let alone run. He said, it's got to be you. And Eki said he went up, and he said that Jack said to him, you've played forward before, you're a forward. Get up there, kick goals. And it was like Ivan had, as a young fella, played forward and mid. And he went up there and, kicked 3 goals that turned the game by 8 points. It's just that, exactly that. It's like, well, there's no problem here. It's actually a bonus. We've got you because you've played forward. And that's that belief.
Is that something that John introduced over pre-season that, sort of built your season, I suppose, like most clubs do from a pre-season, but is that something that he was installing in those players right from the get-go at day 1 of pre-season?
It's just the way he looks at life, Pete. He just looks at it always that this is possible. We can do this. And the instant that I noticed, when he took over the group was that he spoke to us. He said, oh, look, some of you will like me, some of you won't. That's just human nature. He said, but what we're going to do is, as a group, we're going to be aiming to win the premiership, because that's why we play football. That's why we do pre-season. And that's what this club expects. And he said, don't worry. He said, we'll train really hard during the pre-season. We'll play our games. I'll lighten off in the middle. He said, we'll have a little tough patch in around about early August. He said, and then we time our run to the finals. And we were just looking at it as if, wow, there's the plan just been laid out right in front of us. It was the first time I ever heard him speak. And I thought, wow, this is it. We're going to the top. And that was like an October day. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And you just instantly thought, this is it.
And were there, sort of bonding sessions or trips away with groups of players that allowed you guys to bond so well? Because it just seemed that we know Port Adelaide, where the depth back then was fantastic, and you guys all just seemed to be on the same page. It sounds like John was the man who drove that, and then you guys obviously took it over.
The beauty of it, Pete, was that the majority of our whole group were either a country zone player or a metro zone player, and they'd all come through together. So we'd all played 17s, 19s, you name it. And that was probably Russell's, what would you say? He had to play all of us for our first 50 to 80 games.
Yeah.
And it was, that period the club nearly went broke at the end of 1983.
There's still a lot of people who don't realise how bloody close Port and Sturt were, especially to going under.
Going under, and Bob McLean stood in front of everyone and said, it's a 50% pay cut or we fold. Mm-hmm. And it had been released that basically the club was balancing its books by, transferring a player, Mark Williams, a Bruce Abernathy, a Greg Phillips to the VFL and getting that big transfer check that used to come.
Yep.
And that was basically, we were running at a loss until we got those. And, of course, by the time 1983 come, we'd run out. And there was no big transfer fee coming in. So we were, really well and truly in the red. So it was a tough time, and Russell had to take over at that time. And so he was basically told, you've got to play the kids. And so all of us, and again, it was opportunity for us, and so we're excited about that. But, you've got to go through and learn. And so all of the guys that you would have seen play, like a Darren Smith centre-half forward, Roger Delaney full-back, Hodges Tyler, Fiacci, Marnie, Rowan Smith, Darryl Borlace, all these guys, all of us came through the juniors together. Yeah. So we basically had done all the hard, tough yards together, and then we get this guy that knows how to make you believe. And it was like we all bought into the dream and the belief. And that first year in 88, you may remember the club released a single written by Andy Upton, a local guy.
I do remember that, yeah.
And it was called Magpies Expect to Win. And it was all about, black and white colours feared throughout this state, Port Adelaide's fine achievements of nothing short of great. And it was, and in this year of Aussie Pride, which was the bicentenary year of 1988, our nation comes of age. Well, the team that stands for number one will rewrite history's page. And I remember it off by heart, but, the Magpies expect to win. And they released that. And we had three players talk on it. There was Bruce Abernathy, Martin Leslie, and our captain, Russell Johnson. And in it, Jono says, we'll win the flag. You better believe it. Now, we hadn't won a flag since 81.
Yeah.
So here you are standing up in front of the whole competition, releasing a single that's saying you're going to win the flag, and you've released it in May. So think about that for like, if somebody did that today, oh my Lord, they'd be hunted down. But it was this real thing about, like I said, we all bought into the dream, and this made it even more solidified that we're releasing a single about it. And I found it was funny because we had to paint a couple of rooms here, and I had to dig out all this crap and move it all and all this. And as I was putting it back, I had this old cassette holder. We all used to listen to tapes back in the day. And I had all my mixtapes in there. And there was a piece of paper, and I thought, what's that? So I pulled this piece of paper out, and it was the actual letter that was given to each and every player to tell us about the release of this song, The Magpies Expect to Win. Yeah, it was incredible. And that's why I know it was made, because it's dated. And every player got one. It was amazing. And they had a film clip with it. I think it went to number 17 on the charts. It was just insane.
Might have to look that one up, I reckon.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
I did laugh that you mentioned Russell Johnson there, Pete. Russell Johnson was going to be centrefold in the magazine, but they're going to have to continue to it in the next edition. So yes. Yes.
Yes, that's very true.
Yes.
But it was just the belief that came flooding over the club. And, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head how we went that. I reckon we might have 17-5, I reckon. We might have finished that first year at, and we finished top, played Nord in the second semi, and it was a windy day, and I think Nord only kicked 2 goals.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll bring up. Don't worry, we'll bring up yesterday.
Well, you blokes bring up enough of my issues, so
fair call, mate.
Need to get one back. But it was we went through and got to the grand final, and the Bays made their way through, because let's face it, they were very experienced finals campaigners at that stage. They'd played that was their 4th grand final in a row, and had a lot of premiership players. And I do remember in 1987, and they'd won 2 in a row, of course, and I'll never forget having an argument with one of their players, and he turned to me and said, "Shut up, Ginever, how many premierships you played in?" And, of course, at that stage, 0. But in the end, I
think you might have got him covered. just quietly. Now, Tim, on to a really serious day, or not just day, but an event almost, and just an absolute tragedy is the word we're all obviously looking for. But even go through when you just found out with Anthony Williams on the Friday.
Yeah, look, I know I've done this a couple of times for the club when we did the 150-year documentary recently, and I told the story a few times, and it hits you like a wave, because it just takes you back to that moment, and it's just really hard to comprehend the whole thing. But I was working at Balfour's, and I was there on the Friday afternoon, and got a phone call from the club saying Anthony Williams has passed away, and I'm like, how, what, all the detail, and just letting you know that, we'll be wearing black armbands tomorrow, and Stephen's pulling out of the team. And of course, no problems. And that was it, bang, and moved on. I think it was Bob Clayton making the phone call. So he went through the lineup, and it's one of those unbelievable sliding door moments where George Fiacci was in the reserves. And Stephen at the time probably wasn't playing his best footy. He was actually in the back pocket. And so George comes in for Stephen into the back pocket. And the irony of that is that forced Stephen to go into the middle when he came back. And Stephen played the most unbelievable football. He besides a hamstring that he did late in 88, he was leading the Magarey medal.
Yeah, that's right.
So, so that's how good he was flying. So in the end, the game, of course, we go to the game and we're all unbelievably emotional about what had happened. And, of course, Jack speaks to us all and says, now, this is where the situation's at, all the rest of it. We've got, and you've got to remember, prior to this, we had only won 1 in our last 11 encounters against Nord. Nord had beaten us 10 times in a row, and we finally won 1, I think the last minor round game of 87. And Nord always had the wood on us. So we go into this game with this heavy burden on us, plus having beaten Nord for, about 4 years. So it's like, wow, this is going to be huge. The game pans out. Nord are all over us. We're not playing very well. And I know personally I felt like I was struggling. I think I might have kicked 1 goal, but I just didn't feel like I was finding the ball or having any impact. And I felt really bad about it. So, because you don't want to let the family down. So we come into the rooms at half time and nobody's emotional or anything. It's just an air of absolute disappointment. And I'm thinking, not having experienced Jack as a coach, I'm thinking we're going to get an almighty blast here. And went into the rooms and he just sat us all down and said, guys, you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard. Now listen, this is what will be happening in the Williams household. There'll be a radio in every room. They'll be walking around. They'll be checking on your your guys' effort and the score. And what they would have heard so far is that you're committing yourself, you're going in hard, you're doing all those things, but you're just not keeping it calm, keeping it cool, seeing the right options, being able to get it and use it. I just want you to calm down within yourself and know that the family is with you. And it was just like pin could drop. And it was like, wow, I felt like this big relief come over me that it's okay. They understand. And so we go out in the second half, and it was as gritty a fight back and a classic game that you'll get. And there's just so many unbelievable micro moments in it that would definitely be reviewed by umpires today.
Yes. Well and truly.
Yeah, correct. That Greg Phillips' mark on the line from Tim McNeil kick, and you name it, and it just came down.
He only marked it on the parade, but that's fine.
Yeah. But we ended up, getting up by a smallish margin and coming over the top and getting into the rooms afterward. The elation and relief that we hadn't let the family down, the hugging and everything that went on. And then Jack just said, right, have your showers, get in your cars. We're going down as a convoy to the Williams household. And it was like, wow. And I don't know if you've seen Bruce Abernathy speak about it.
Yeah.
But he said it was just like the most incredible thing that we all just went down as one, as a procession, and went in there. And, I'll never forget the day. It's just so harrowing to see Foss and Vonnie sitting on that couch. And at this stage, I hadn't met Mark Williams. I hadn't actually met Mark. And, to see him crying and hugging Greg Phillips and the like and all that. And then, I get to Steve, and Steve said, I've just not stopped crying. He said, I'm a big sook. And I said, hey, you can't cry now, mate. You can never cry. But you got to understand that's what the stuff we talk about today with yourself.
Bloody oath.
You got to let this stuff out. And then I went up to Foss, and who was absolutely shattered. And then it was funny. Vonnie was, people talk about how strong she was. She grabbed my hand. She said, no, Timmy, God only takes the best. And he took my son because he's the best. Yeah. And, it was just, it was an amazing strength that she could show in that time. So, yeah, look, it's a moment in time that I'll never forget, because it had so many changing effects on so many people. And I think, if Anthony was here today and he said, gee, if it sparked this and it sparked that and all the rest of it, then I've lived my life well.
Were Nord obviously aware of the situation, and was there any opportunity to postpone the game maybe for a day, or was there any talk of that?
I don't think back then it just wasn't even remotely considered back then.
It was not even considered. There was not even a moment of that, and the whole football community knew about what had happened, but there was absolutely no mention of that whatsoever. And it was like, and this happened on the Friday and we played on the Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was within the 24-hour window. It was just incredible. And I suppose that is pretty much the way, like Malcolm says, there wouldn't even been a discussion on it. Yep. That it would have been that there. That
it just came over. It came over the radio, and you just went, "What? Wow!" And but everything just moved on. Not moved on.
Yep.
life
continued on.
And you had to fit everything in.
Yeah. And I just think we've got better now as blokes at saying, hey, we're not okay. But back then it was still very much, hey, stiff upper lip, don't say anything. And it's come out. We had Ross Dillon on last week, Tim, and we're talking about Ross Dillon, where Ross Dillon's father died when he was 16 on Christmas Day. He went to fix a drill and electrocuted himself. He'd had another brother die of myopathy disease and another brother commit suicide. And the majority of the Nord guys were not aware of that whatsoever. Aishi, I told him, and he just went, bullshit. No, man. He just couldn't believe it. He said, I played with Ross, played under his coaching, had no idea. And so that's an area where blokes we've got better. But back then it was just, and it was an emotional day, obviously. And even as a Nord band, and we thought we should have been well up at halftime. And I think Tim probably would agree with that on the first half. And then Port came back, and it was a Beeline could have gone either way. And as Port came off, I think a few of us went, you know what?
It's bigger than the game, isn't it? Yeah.
At least they've got this now for the Williams family, and it was. It's still incomprehensible. Is probably a good way of putting it, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just it was a significant day. We actually, funnily enough, that run that Norwood had against us, we then repeated.
It went the other way. Yeah,
it went the other way. We won 10 in a row against Norwood, so it just was an amazing pivot point, if you like.
It's amazing how events in clubs' history changes them for the better or sometimes for the worse. But it sounds like you guys all banded together and really honoured the Williams family. And the Norwood Port rivalry, as we all know, is quite strong and has been through the years. But I'm sure there was absolutely the most amount of respect there on that day. That's for sure.
Tim, we've got a brief interruption.
Yeah.
Ollie Pope bowled Pat Cummins for 14, England 3 for 73. Come on, we've got to get Root out. Come on, back to the interview.
Yep.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. So then, Tim, you've hit Port's golden era. So 88, 89, 90. Go. You might as well hit me, Tim. I'll just go and get a coffee, Pete. All right. Yeah.
That'd be right. Leave me with the Port story.
Go, Pete. Go on, Tim. I've got to suffer.
Huge respect for Port Adelaide, so let's go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Your period of dominance,
I think 88, it was that year that we had to break a drought as far as Port Adelaide was concerned. When it came to 89, a lot of us hadn't been, involved in one premiership, let alone trying to back it up.
Yep.
And I think there was this really significant moment in 89 where we won the first game and we played Sturt at Alberton and we won reasonably convincingly. And then following week we played North Adelaide at Prospect, got beat. And I reckon we played the Bays on Anzac Day and got beat. So we're, one win and 2 losses and pretty disappointing in the 2 losses. And it felt like, because we won the pre-season comp, the Foundation Cup as well. So I reckon there was this complacency about, you think you're too good. And I remember going to the Sunday morning training session thinking after the Bays loss, I reckon Jack's going to absolutely give it to us and we're going to be, doing the old one ball in the middle and Foss Williams style running into it.
Shit out of each other. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we've come down to the Oval and Jack sort of not doing his normal stuff and we're thinking, where is he? What's happening? And then the team manager came and said, all of you out in the Oval. So we all went out in the Oval. He said, right, now walk around, do all that. So we walked around and everyone's sort of looking at each other and what is going on? And we've walked right down to the northern end and then Jack's wandered his way down the middle of the ground and then stopped. And he sat us down in that pocket and said, I don't know, some of you haven't won a premiership before, some of you didn't play in it. I'm just wondering whether anybody wants to win one this year. And everybody was sort of looking at each other. Yeah. He said, well, your behaviours and the way you're going about it doesn't seem like it to me. What I want you all to do, he said, we're not training today. He said, what I want you all to do is to go away. No, you're not training tomorrow night. You come back here Tuesday and I'll see you on the track with an interview, want to double up and win a premiership again. Because I haven't seen it. And he just walked away. And it was like, whoa. Oh, that one hurt. And it was a real sting in your pride to basically say, I'm not punishing you, but I'm telling you, do you really want it? Because I don't see it. And it was almost that, you know what, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Which hurts more in some ways.
The spray by stealth.
Yeah.
You got it. And we all went away. And we weren't playing that great. So this was bizarre, Malcolm, and I know you've got a great memory. We played, our next game was Norwood on a Monday night.
Yes,
at Football Park.
that's right. Yes.
Under lights. And we have opened up like no tomorrow because it was going to rain.
Yes.
And we have opened up fierce and fast and created this huge lead. Now, I reckon we might have been 6 or 7 goal up, I'm guessing. But it was a fair bet. And the rain came. Well, somehow Norwood just kept chipping away and chipping away.
Yeah, went
and
down
in
the
the
wire.
end,
Yeah.
I think we only won by 4 points.
Yeah, I was going to say 4 points. And
yeah,
Jeff Wilson will be listening to this at some stage. And it showed him his dad had got a new car, and we'd gone back.
Oh, no.
And we'd forgotten. We're all looking for the old car in the car park, and it's pissing down with rain. And it's about half an hour we've realised, oh, shit, that's right, it's a different car. Yeah. That's again showing my memory. And as soon as you said that the Monday night, I'm thinking, yep, 4 points, Ray. Yep,
yeah.
They are.
That was the one.
Expanses of the car parking at Footy Park back in the days.
Yeah, God, yeah. So we got up, and it was like a bit of a relief. But what happened after that, we just couldn't read about. We won 17 games in a row. Mm. We played this period in the middle where we played. We were top. We played the other top 4 teams, which were North at the time, Norwood, Glenelg, and Centrals. The smallest winning margin that we won by was 72 points. We just had what I would say the best period of football that I ever played in at Alberton. It was just like, this team cannot be beaten. It was unbelievable, and we were just flying. So I've never played anything like it since. But it was the most dominant team that I'd ever played in, and we beat the Bays at Alberton Oval by 128 points, and they were sitting third. It was just unbelievable.
It makes that number 119 look like a cliffhanger, Timmy J.
Yes. So it was just an amazing run, and it all came to an end in a game that I know lots of Rooster supporters absolutely love, but it was the Father's Day game of 1989.
Great game.
Yeah, and it was scheduled for Alberton. But what had happened was...
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, we'd won 17 in a row. North had won 11 in a row since we beat them. And it was like this massive blockbuster. We were clear top 1 and 2, and this was this game was going to decide who's going to win the minor premiership. So they said, we want to shift it to Footy Park. And they did. They shifted it to the Sunday, Father's Day.
Yeah.
And 37,000 rocked up to Footy Park to see it. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable.
And it was one of the all-time great games.
It was a classic. I think we got done by 3 or 4 points, not much. And it had everything. It had fights. It had terrific goals. It had high marks. It had a lot. It was an absolute cracking game. And then we lost, so there was only 1 game to go before finals. And then we played Norwood the following week, got beat by 10.
Yeah.
So we went from the old, what they say, the chocolates to boiled lollies. We've gone into a final series for the first time, sort of not on a high. We've gone in on a low. So we played Centrals in the qualifying final, and we were struggling. And I'll never forget the moment I think it all changed. And that was Simon Tregenza. As you know, he had a magnificent year in '89, really burst on the scene.
Yep.
He's lightning quick. He's bouncing down the members' side of Football Park, and he's being pursued by Stephen Schwerd, who we know was super fit and fast himself, and he's trying to get there, and Wayne Marnie came off his man and ran straight through him and cleaned him up in what today is a magnificent shepherd that probably gets 6 weeks.
6 weeks,
and took him off his back. He kicks it down. Scotty kicks a goal, and the whole game changed. It was like poured it back. And it was like the care for one another's back. And it was incredible. And it turned the game. We won by massive margin, and then beat North in the second semi by probably only about 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah.
And what was a good game. And then, of course, the grand final, we all know, was a bit of a disaster, I reckon.
It was bizarre, wasn't it? It was so weird. I went along as a neutral. Mm-hmm. This should be a great game. And it was just really weird that it wasn't even a contest virtually from very
bounce.
from the first bounce, really. But I reckon you had it won effectively, probably 15 minutes in or something even. You know,
at quarter time, I walked in. I've got to say, before the game, I looked at Andrew Obst and said, "We're going to have to play the best we've ever played to beat these blokes."
Yeah,
because I felt like their midfield was probably one of the best going around. And by quarter time, we had the breeze, which was, a bit blustery and unusual. As we were walking in, I said to David Brown, I said, "I don't think we kicked enough. I think we might have kicked 5-4. I said, "I don't think we kicked enough." You know what they're like. They're a goal-kicking machine, So we get in and go, right, we're going to have to be really steely in that second quarter. Well, by halfway through the second quarter, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is happening? It was just bizarre. So by halftime, I think we're like 9-8 to a couple of points.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre. So in the end, like, we were going to go into the third quarter with a strong breeze again. We'll set the game up. But it really was bizarre. And I got to say, at the end of it, it didn't feel like a grand final. It just didn't, because it just felt like you hadn't earned it, because it was just like a non-contest. Now, sometimes you can have a day that just everything goes wrong, and we know that. You just mentioned 119 earlier, but it was just bizarre against such a talented outfit, and probably an anticlimax to what should have ended a really good year between the two clubs.
And poor Craig Burton's had to wear that forever since, Who
The one
kicked
goal,
the one
yeah.
goal, the one goal in mind jokes.
Yep.
And, it was just such a bizarre game with what should have been, the Jarmans, Hart, Sim, etc.
Simsy, they were good, very good. But look, it was, and unfortunately, I know it fractured a few relationships at North at the time, because Doug Smart and Andrew Jarman went to Norwood the following year. So, which was unusual. 90 was a strange year for us in that we lost a couple of players, like Delaney went to Fitzroy, Andrew Obst went to Melbourne. So we're sort of resetting up again. And then we were going through okay, but we weren't really turning much on. Then we got Ben Harris and Mark Williams back from Brisbane. And that sort of changed the dynamic a fair bit, because if you know Mark Williams, he can change any dynamic in any room at any moment. And
not like you to make an understatement, Timmy G.
Oh, but it was amazing. And what I suppose I loved about Choco was he could absolutely take over a room and dominate and the rest of it. But if you said, "Hey, shut up," he really respected that. Yeah. And it was almost like, so you're prepared to stand up, and fight. That's great, So we ended up being really good mates, and used to go to Faster Pastor every Friday and have a good chat about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And he was already coaching back then. Don't worry about that. He already had it in his blood. So it was amazing. But it changed the dynamic for us a bit. And then I wouldn't say we were dominating the comp at all. We were sort of in that top three. But then that fateful day happened in August, when the front page of the paper said Port are going in the AFL, and wow, did the proverbial hit the fan. It was unbelievable. Like, none of us knew. None of the players knew. The board had kept it airtight. And, when the whole thing launched, well, it's pandemonium, and nobody knew what was right, wrong, or whatever. Yeah. What I loved about the club was they basically said, "You blokes, you got nothing to do with it. You're playing footy. You keep your head down, bum up. You got to get on with that. Let us worry about all this stuff, And so they kept us pretty much, divorced of all conversations or any speculation or So there's lots of pandemonium going everywhere. And I remember the pressure upon the club to sort of keep winning. But at that stage, it was almost like, okay, beauty, we've got this campaign now, it's us against the world. And the first game, Scott, I just kicked some ridiculous amount of goals at Alberton, 13 or something ridiculous against Christies, and we just went on a rampage and just kept winning. And we got to the finals, and we went to play the second semi. That's right, and we didn't play well. We'd won all these games in a row. We didn't play well. The Bays got up by about 10 or 11 points and went straight in the grand final. And then there was this whole campaign to go, well, everybody get behind the Bays, because we can't have Port win it. And we got a couple of nasty injuries in the prelim, where Brownie did a hammy. I rolled my ankle, and Rowan had his jaw broken, and so we were going to be down a couple, and that's when Adrian Setri comes in.
Yeah.
And I think Wayne Marnie came into the side as well, and Wayne played really well, especially in the first quarter. He had an awesome start, and we played on what I would say an epic grand final, and it was just amazing. Scotty kicks the record and hurts his knee, comes back on, and just a really quite an amazing day. We already knew that we'd lost the battle, and that the AFL decided that it will be a composite side, and so we sort of knew that, but we wanted to take the trophy home anyway. So,
Tim, has it ever really come out? And did Paul actually say in the end, well, to you guys, even as a group, this could be breaking, that hey, we actually got stitched up, and that the AFL were always going to have a composite side first?
No, they never did. What I fronted. Greg Bolton wasn't president at the time because Bruce Weber was.
Yep.
But I went and saw Greg, I reckon, during the pre-season. We must have been at a function or something. And I just said to him, how did we lose? How did that happen? And he goes, Timmy, it was like this. When you go to war, you got to have a big war chest. We didn't have a big war chest. So what was going to happen is they were going to just keep slapping injunction upon injunction upon injunction, and we didn't have the money to fight it. He said, so it really, in the end, we had to concede that moment so that we could then devise the new plan to get the second license. And we just had to concede.
Yeah, as I said, my mail was my mail, and look, I've got to be honest, I reckon my mail is very, very good on that. And few things. So anyway,
I've no doubt that they probably played that card, hoping that it would force the hand of the other, without a doubt. But I think, and they had the licenses and all the rest of it. They were playing the game. I just feel like, I know if you go right back, and it's a long argument, but the WA jumping in without SA buggered it up straight away.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, so that was a real mistake.
Oh, and WA footy very, very nearly went under. Don't worry, they were as stuffed as Port and Sturt were, and that Pacific Holdings, and you may have found a Western Australian himself as a former Sydney Swans chairman, lost 1.3 million himself, and things like that. We had his guest at a lunch and I ended up with him. So,
So to just recap there, 88, 89, 90, you guys get leather poisoning and you'd probably take out shares in Sharon. 90...
Ross Faulkner would have been.
Ross Faulkner or Burley, one of the two.
Rossy Faulkner.
You then get wind that through media that Port Adelaide are going to put in a bid for the AFL or the VFL back then. You players were told, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. But surely there was some talk amongst the players as to what the hell's going on here and how do we become a part of it?
Well, for us, it was like if I play well and we play premiership, I might be a chance of being in that team. And there was a lot of talk about, well, who will come over? And I remember Chris McDermott saying, I'm not playing for them.
Yeah.
He did use a few other expletives, but it was like there's no way. So we might have struggled to probably attract, what would you say, the best, probably the SNFL that was going around at the time. But what we might have been able to get was the names like Bradley and Anderson and those sort of guys back. That could have been, and we already. Yeah, we already had a sliding doors moment
that would have been.
Yeah, so we already had a kid called Wanganeen, and Martin Leslie had moved to the Brisbane and that. So we sort of could have got maybe those guys back, and then maybe a few would have said yes to come over.
You'd have kept Buckley.
So who knows?
Yeah, we better keep going here. We better keep going.
It was yet to come.
We better keep going. Andrew on her phone back.
That's true.
Okay, let's go.
Stay with Port Power for a second there. Obviously, you were involved with Port Adelaide at the time when the Power were trying to come into the AFL. How did that all sort of plan out? Obviously, 97 was the year, and you had a little bit more of a run up. And considering back in 83 you guys were pretty much all broke, sounds like the war chest was built quite considerably by the time you were ready to come in?
Oh, yeah. And look, unfortunately for probably those that went through that period of time, nobody was paid well and nothing was spent on the facility. Let me tell you that. So it was, we were running on the shoestring because we had to keep that war chest building. But with the emphasis that, guys, we've got to win the flag, because if we don't win the flag, we're going to look stupid trying to bid for the second license. So it didn't bother me at all. People say, "Oh, that's a bit of a heavy expectation." I said, "Well, we had that expectation anyway. We wanted to do them anyway, so I had no dramas with that." I think what happened initially, though, the Crows come in, and I think we all know that the euphoria that went around the Crows at the time was probably unexpected and quite frankly over the top.
Oh, yeah, it was ridiculous.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was unbelievable. And a lot of the guys that were either in that squad or guys that had tried out. Now, the top, I think they picked 75 guys to train or something like that.
And ended up with 52.
Then 52. Some of our guys went into that training and didn't make it and came out of that squad and came back, and we hadn't seen them for the whole pre-season, and we had the worst pre-season. When I say worst pre-season, facility was like we couldn't even afford to go down to Victor Harbour where we normally used to go. We ended up staying in Manham somewhere, running up gravel hills. It was just it was just as rough as guts, and we used to get coloured T-shirts to have our teams, and we had old David Armfield's mum's old towels ripped into headbands. So we were that desperate. It was terrible.
Oh, wow.
Sounds pretty useful.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. So
old school.
I think a lot of people, and Jack spoke to us about it during the season. He just said he felt like a lot of people had just dropped their bundle a bit as far as, aspiring, because it was like, well, there's this other massive beast in town now and we're a bit irrelevant and maybe. And he was saying you can't dwell on what might have been. And the good thing for me was I was never involved in any of that. I never got picked up in the squad, never got asked, you name it. So I didn't have that. I didn't have that burden personally, but I could see that probably did affect a few other lads. So I could see Jack again reading the room and getting it right. We had a terrible year in '91 and got smashed in the elimination final and knocked out.
Yep.
So it's the end of that. It was like the embarrassment of that. The club came down pretty hard on all of us, and for the first time in my existence at Port, we had a post-season interviews and reviews.
Okay.
With the coach, the president, the fitness guy. It was like, whoa, this has never happened before. They were that filthy and that angry because it looked bad on our resume. So it was like, okay. So honestly, in '92, I think a couple of players went off, but the only change we really had to our lineup was Rowan Smith came back from 1 year at St Kilda, and we had two kids come into the team. One 19 called Brett Chalmers, and now the 20-year-old called Nathan Buckley.
Yeah, they had a bit of an impact. Yeah,
just a little bit.
A bit of an impact.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go, Tim. Let's go through to 94, 95, 96, and the grand final against Woodville West Torrens in '94. And let's be honest, you won Port the game. Port were nearly gone. Go through that, mate.
Yeah, it was look, in the end, it looks like a pivotal moment, but you have to have about 100 more to win a game. But I felt like the game was it was overcast, it was dark, and we'd gone through three finals. We played a drawn qualifying final against Centrals where we had to play extra time and nobody really knew what was going on. So we ended up winning that one, but it took a lot out of us because you had to do the 5 minutes each way after you've done everything else. And then we played the second semi and we were still in that game nearly, sort of to three-quarter time, and then we just ran out of legs and they belted us by about 12 goals. So it looked like a nastier loss than what it really was.
Yep.
We went back to the prelim. We're able to beat Centrals to come back in. But lo and behold, 25 minutes in, we're 6-goal down and haven't scored a goal. It was like looking pretty bad. And I remember standing there, and it was an incident that happened when Darryl Borlace walked up to me and said, "Don't worry about them, Nick, but we're going to come back and win this game." And as I turned around to look at him and think, is he okay? Is he a full quit? I've looked around. His man said something to Daisy about, you're an idiot or something like that.
Yep.
Normal banter.
Yep.
Anyway, the young fellow on me said, yeah, Borlace. Said, and I thought, hang on. You're not old enough to have a go at him.
Yep.
You're bloody 19 or 20. You don't get to have a go at him. He's bloody 29 or something. I said, you shut your mouth. And he said, no, or something like that. I said, you shut it, or I'll shut it for you. And he said, no, you won't. So anyway, it was a bit of banter. And then the ball goes, and I'll never forget, it went down the outside, kicked it into the pocket. Steve Williams went to mark it, and it slipped out of his hands and went over the boundary line. I thought, geez, we're having a bad day. So I go to the pocket for the throw-in, and an old fella who was a Nord supporter, let me tell you, Malcolm, that I used to do some sprint training with, he taught me, he said, when that ball's getting thrown in, if somebody's grabbing your jumper or tagging you, he said, just a quick little movement of the elbow into the solar plexus and they'll let go. And that's exactly what happened. The ball got thrown in because he said all the eyes are on the ball, aren't they?
Who was that, the fitness guy? I've got to ask.
He's an old fella called Barney. He was out of the Adelaide Harriers. This is about,
Yep.
This is like about, I'm talking 1984.
Yeah, I know the guy you mean. Yep.
Yeah, lovely old fella. And so the ball got thrown in, and I was getting scruffed, and I thought, no, I'm going to do Barney's trick. And I went, boom. And I heard him go, oh, and I thought, beauty, got rid of him. And I thought nothing else of it because it's something you do 100 times at stoppage. And I've jogged off. And then I just turned around. He's got the second wind and come full pelt at me to hit me. And I thought, well, I've got to get in first here. So I got in first. And I thought, right, beauty, it's fallen over, and I'm about to put the second one in, and about 10 blokes jumped on the top of me and started goking up me. And I thought, I heard the whistle. I thought, oh, God, it's a bad day. I got reported. And he said, free kick, Timmy Ginever. I thought, you beauty. Couldn't believe my luck. Went back. I'll never forget the replay. Paul Northeast pointing to his head going, that's smart, Nipper, that's smart. And I'm thinking, you don't know half the story, mate. And so I went back, kicked the goal, and automatically it changes the mood. And Darren Mead had just gone into ruck. He rips it out, kicks it long. Scotty takes a one-handed mark. And the guy that gave the free kick away to me...
Glenn Freeborn, yep.
No, Glenn didn't give it away.
It wasn't Glenn. No, that's right. It was Kennedy.
It was
Kennedy?
No, it wasn't Kennedy. I'll get his name in a minute. Hannum.
Right.
He then jumped on Scotty after he marked it and gave away 25.
Yeah.
And so Scotty kicks a certain goal. So rather than 6 down at quarter time, you're only 4. And we knew from that moment onwards, okay, boys, we're going to eat this elephant bit at a time. And by 3/4 time, we felt the momentum had totally swung.
It was. I agree. Yeah. Watching that, and obviously I was, Bruce Winter's coach, and so there's a connection there, and obviously it's against Port anyway, so I'm going to be barracking for the opposition. And
correct.
At 3/4 time, I thought, Port have got this. Yeah.
Yeah, I had it's amazingly, we went back to what Bojangles developed into Joplins with the extension.
Yes.
I had...
Geez, we're reliving our life here, Timmy G.
Yeah. The night of the 94 grand final, walked in there at about, I don't know, say 2 a.m. and stayed till 6 a.m. with Bruce Winter talking. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I reckon Bruce has told me that somehow. Yeah.
And he said, I got to get out of here before I start thinking that you're a good bloke. Oh, God, that was a good laugh. But he's a great bloke. I think we got on really well. I mean, I said, mate, you bloody caused me pain 10 years ago in 84, so if I can give a little bit back, I'm happy.
All's fair in love and war.
So kick, and then say 95, 96, you just Port dominated, and really just pure results-wise, there was no other option but to give Port the second licence.
Yeah, well, the end of that 94, we knew there was Schwab and Oakley sitting in the crowd when the last quarter happened. And I saw, when I walked into the change rooms afterwards, I saw, board members flying at one another, hugging, kissing. They knew that was the sealer. And
that makes sense.
They'd made the comment that they said, geez, this is as loud as the MCG. This is incredible. They just couldn't believe the passion of this team coming back from nowhere to win a grand final by 6 after they were down by 6. So the decision came shortly afterwards, and that the licence was coming. And so by 95, we knew we were going in to the AFL at some stage. And it was supposed to be 96, but they postponed that because of Fitzroy and the 100th year of the VFL, which was a bit disappointing for some of us older chaps who thought we might sneak in.
That 1 year is pretty important. That
1 year was crucial, and that hurt a good deal of us. But that's life, and I know Port did the right thing by going into the younger squad. I think that was a very good decision that paid dividends, obviously, later on. So, but that time, 95 and 96, we were like a really well-oiled machine. We attracted a couple of guys like Robbie West and Malacalis and these guys that thought that, if there's a second chance at AFL, maybe it's through these guys. And they gave us much added speed around the footy that we needed. Me and Stephen and, Daryl Borlace, we could win the ball, but we weren't quick. So it was great to get those guys around us who could just explode away, And so it really gave us a good mix. And we had good, solid, consistent years in both those years. And, we played Centrals in 95 and, it sort of hurt me a bit walking into the rooms because Alan Stewart's always been a very good friend and a mentor for me.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes, with your
having to see the disappointment.
Coach,
having to see the disappointment on his face. And I said to him, look, they're getting harder. I said, but what you're doing here with your boys is unbelievable. And, you really should build a statue for you down Elizabeth because I said,
bloody oath.
You've changed the whole mentality of the place. So, and then the following year he gave it up and ended up becoming our list manager at Port Adelaide. Stevie Wright took over and they had a great year. They beat us 4 times in 96. 4 times.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when we lost the second semi, I was so angry in the rooms. I think I've told you this, Malcolm, but I got interviewed after the game by a journalist, and I can't remember who it was, and they said something like, what did you think of that game? They've beaten you 4 times. I said, I'm that angry. I said, now we've got to go back and play Nord in the prelim, and whoever wins that wins the flag. I said, so disappointing. and he said, what? And I said, well, no. I said, well, obviously that, us and Nord play the prelim. Whoever wins that wins the flag. I said, it's just obvious. And he goes, how can you say that? They've beaten you 4 times. I said, because they got no idea how to win one. I said, Nord and Port have been winning them for years. Yeah. We know how to win them. They don't have any clue. I said, so whoever gets through is going to win. And I was...
You're bloody right, yeah.
Well, I was right, but they wrote an article, something about arrogant Ginever dismisses Bulldogs.
Well, you were still correct.
But what I was doing, there was the belief system Jack puts into us. It was basically, no, don't get arrogance mixed up with belief. They're 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
And belief has substance behind it, and arrogance is just a statement. So it was absolutely true that we believed we could win. And as you saw and turned out, it was one of the classic prelim finals of all time.
Tim.
Was that the one with Scotty Hodges kicking it? Yep.
So on that, Tim, I'm actually went reasonably serious health problem. I'm in hospital and I'm pretty crook. And let's say when Hodges has kicked the goal, a radio came off second best at Burnside Hospital. In runs this nurse thinking that I'd collapsed on the floor and went
code blue
and goes, football, is that all? And let's just say my reply back made sure that I was no chance to win the Burnside Hospital Patient of the Year award. Such a great year after Port have bloody come from nowhere to win us and a smash radio everywhere on the floor. Yeah, yes.
Oh, classic. I appreciate that because, yes, we've all had those moments in our footy career.
So Scotty's free kick, how confident were you with him kicking it?
No. I've honestly said this to him himself. I started setting up the zone for the game.
Bloody wish it had missed.
I'm screaming and yelling at everybody else to
Didn't
set
you
up
flush it?
in the zone because I wanted to hold it in and trap it and try and score. And because he'd missed 2 dead in front just prior to that. And
That's right.
I thought, well, this is almost impossible. Breeze was going left to right. He's nearly 50 out. I know he can make the distance, but, anyway, he goes back. And the minute he hit it, I just started heading back to the centre square.
Yeah.
I just could not believe how well he hit it. It didn't deviate.
No.
It was an amazing kick. Incredible.
We saw some footage, obviously, this week with Nord playing Port at the parade with Scotty doing that. And the free kick, as a Nord supporter, I reckon it was there, but it was right in front of the umpire and he had no choice but to give it, and Scotty just flushed it, didn't he?
The other thing about that, Pete, is I reckon as time goes on and you see what's paid today, this looks like an incredibly obvious free kick.
Back then it was very controversial. Yeah.
In '96, most people said, "Oh, was it there?
Yeah.
You sure?"
Yeah.
So I know when we did a little piece on it at Port Adelaide, we did a little recall piece on it. Richard Kelly was interviewed. He said, "Nah, it wasn't even in the side, let alone in the back, and could have been there." And then I think Scotty says, either around the neck or in the back, which one do you want to pay? So the difference of opinion was quite wide.
Now, your BNF in 97, Tim, and turning out, and what a great day that was, the grand final, 97 grand final. But you're deciding to retire after that game and winning the BNF.
Well,
and
I didn't actually retire immediately. I didn't know that was going to be my last game. Had no idea. I just went in, thinking that was the grand final I wanted to win. So I didn't actually decide. I didn't retire till December. So it came about. I think I told you before. I had a calcification on the back of my right heel that continued to grow and over time, and what it was doing was the Achilles that was attached to the back of the heel was extending out over the top of the calcification. So every year the calcification grew, the Achilles was getting stretched further and further. And what eventually was happening, I used to have a cortisone in it at the beginning of the year, and I could get through a season. Then I was having 2 cortisones, and then I was having 3 cortisones because it was getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
By the time the last season came, I was limping really badly I reckon there was about 5 weeks to go of the finals. I said to Stephen Williams, who'd taken over coaching by then, and said, I just don't know if I can go. And he said, do whatever you can, let's just get through the finals. So I went and saw the club doctor. He said, you can't have any more because cortisone like that, you keep having them, the opportunity is it makes your tendon brittle and it'll snap.
Yeah.
And so I took his advice and went to a different doctor. And I had 6 cortisones in it to play the final series of 97. And I got through without it snapping, thankfully.
I remember Brian Colby doing his at Footy Park.
Yeah, when they go.
Yes.
It's huge. So I ended up post that trying to then I was indecisive about what I was going to do, and I thought, well, I'll go to pre-season. I went to pre-season and we just did a weir run to begin. I came stone mudderless last and couldn't even hardly complete it, and that was embarrassing. And I just said, I think I've got a serious problem here, Steve. And he said, well, go and see what you have to do, So I went and saw some specialists, and in the end, he said, we took MRIs and pictures of it, and there was an inch of calcification on it by this stage.
Incredible.
And he said, we've got to operate, take it off, shave the bone back, reattach your Achilles. I said, oh, shit, that sounds a bit nasty. I said, how long would that be? He said, it's about a 6 to 12 month recovery. And I said, mate, I'm 31. I've got to be back out there, before Christmas. And he said, yeah, you won't be doing that. And so I had to make things up. And at the time, John Cale said, listen, I wouldn't mind you coming over and helping with the team as a skills coach / midfield, I suppose, involvement, and I thought, well, that could be a coaching road. Who knows? It could be, what other AFL club's going to ask you to come along and help. And I thought, well, bloody hell, there's an opportunity. And if I had the operation, I can't play anyway, and I can't play without it. So I was sort of almost forced into it, if you like. And I decided not to do it. So I didn't have the operation. I retired. I went with Jack for that year in '98 at the Power, which was a really interesting year, considering still won 9.5 games and just missed the finals, which was amazing for its second year. But in the end, a year later, I couldn't even do a lap of the oval, so I had to have the operation a year later. It was true. It took me 12 months recovery as well. So,
and then coaching Port Magpies.
Well, yeah, that was a bit later in life. That was 2006. But by then, we had that terrible, obviously, the model that was set up to put Port Adelaide,
it's ridiculous.
Keep Port Adelaide in the SANFL had no revenue stream. Yeah. So it really was, a case of talk about no resources. It was just horrendous. At one stage, I couldn't even get footballs for training. It was that desperate. So,
Stephen Williams has never received the praise he should have for Ethelton. That you were two clubs, and what are you there? That's one of the greatest ever coaching achievements and club achievements in footy.
Yeah, and it just got too hard, unfortunately, and the cupboard was bare basically, and I knew personally this isn't right. It's just not right, and it's just not why we aspired to get into the AFL, why we wanted to get ourselves to the highest level, and this is just not right. The whole Port Adelaide thing's a disaster. So I know my time there as coach actually helped me to sort of go, no, this just needs to be one. It just needs to be one Port Adelaide, and it can't be a two separate beasts who almost, compete for the same audience. It's just like insanity. I just didn't like it. So, in the end, I think the model, it still wasn't 100% right. I would love to have seen us keep the juniors alive and the like, but I think one day we'll see Port Adelaide only in the AFL and not in the SANFL.
Yeah, no, that's coming. It will happen.
And it's a tragedy in one way, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is, but when you aspire to be in there, I still say today, and I say this to Rowie all the time, I just wish there had been a lot cooler and calmer heads in 1990 who could have sat down together and said, right, let's do what we should do. Put the two best teams in, Nord and Port.
Yeah, see, I still disagree vehemently on that.
I know you do. I know you still like your Crows, but
I still just think I think the other club supporters deserve more respect, and it had to be a composite side.
Yeah,
and I still say the AFL, as I've said, I've always said that they got what they wanted. So anyway, we'll keep going on your coaching.
Yeah, they did. So, yeah. But in the end, look, I tell you what, I learned a lot of lessons about coaching, and I had a lot more empathy for coaches.
Yeah.
And I've developed this really good line that I always say when people are complaining about their coach. I said, the problem with coaching is everybody who's not doing it can do it better.
Yeah. Bloody oath.
And that is a reality. And it's all too easy to say this would happen, that would happen. Why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And I go, the problem is sometimes if you're the coach and you do A to B and B to C and it still doesn't work, you go, fuck it hell, what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is frustrating.
Do you believe Nord should be one of the teams to come into the AFL if new licences are granted?
Oh, look, I don't think they'll be able to do it now.
No, but I'm just saying, in an ideal world, would you like to have seen Nord in there?
I would like to have seen them. Like I said, I would like to have seen them in at the beginning.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's go on that elimination final. It's actually weird that it almost wasn't your fault. Not Port's fault in terms of losing that game. Effectively, Neil Craig nearly decided that result.
He did.
Yes.
Dropping bloody Taylor Walker.
Yeah. And Tex just dominant. Tex was just way too good. It didn't matter what Port.
Well, when
you did. You could have. Yeah.
When I see him on Adelaide Oval, and I see him kick 10 the other day and all the rest of it, I keep having flashbacks to that freaking final. Look, it was amazing. It was the difference between the two sides. I think it was an 18-point result or 17 points, but he was Well, what did he kick 7?
Yeah, kick
I
7.
think
Yeah.
he kicked 7.
Had it on a string, didn't he?
Yeah, so, yeah, he was significantly the difference in that game.
Now, a couple of things to finish off with, and let's just say this is one thing that I do totally agree with you, Tim. Greg Phillips being the best player you played with. I could not agree more.
Yeah, like I said, for the whole reason of just everything about team and just then I always say he made careers, and people who played with him disagree. They just say we'd see that ball coming in, we'd see Greg underneath it, and we would just take off our opponent and start sprinting because it was either going to come by hand or foot any minute. So he just dominated.
And it's funny,
back and
we actually spoke about that yesterday briefly, Tim, where I said the perfect example as a player. And breaking news, Joe Root out-stumped Alex Carey, bowled Nathan Lyon for 46. And that, Tim, in terms of that, was Peter Hoffner, a guy back here. He looked, you would have thought this guy is a gun, got offered huge money goes over to WA and hardly played a league game and ended up playing reserves and was back here. And everyone just realised, well, hang on. Phillips was so good. Mm-hmm. And as a Nord supporter, look, don't dare think I didn't respect Russell and all that, but we still had Rod Seacamp, Michael Taylor, who had great records on Russell. Robert Comp did for Sturt and all that, but Greg Phillips was the one. It didn't matter what any other side did. His ability to read the play and then give it off with a handball, and I admit, if I'm picking my best ever side, it's out of Greg Phillips or Ross Glendenning at centre-half back. So that shows how highly I regard Greg Phillips.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that.
And now one of the greatest characters you played with, and look, it's funny that go back there with you in that regard, where I first met you, was umpiring when I umpired you at Woodville High, was umpiring Rowan for Taparoo, I reckon. I'm trying to remember what's yes.
Taparoo.
Yeah, umpiring, and he played in a beanie at school and that.
That's right, yeah.
And just umpiring Rowan. I got to meet Rowan a bit, and then just have got to know Rowan a little bit over the years through, basically, if you go to Port Districts, and if Rowan's not there, ring the police because something's happened. Yep. And, there was one day there and Rowan, he knew I knew my footy, and we ended up talking, and because it was at Port Districts. He's there in cricket as well. He's watching Port Districts on a Saturday as well. Like, I think his car just drives itself to Port Districts on a Saturday.
The original Tesla.
And just end up chatting away with, and he's an absolute character. And tell the story about him turning up to the grand final with a bag, because that is, for Port supporters out there who don't know this, and anyone else, it is one of the great footy stories around. Go for it, Tim.
Yeah, I'll narrow it down. But look, he walked in and he had an overnight bag with him, and I remember Wayne Marnie sort of hit me and said, "Look at this," and I said, "He's got an overnight bag." And we said, "Ron, what are you doing?" He said, "Told Mum I'm not coming home for a fortnight." And I said, "But hang on, mate, we haven't won yet." And he said, "Nah, told her I'm not coming home for a fortnight." I said, "Well, hang on, Ron." I said, "Do you realise in 2 weeks' time we've booked the trip to America? We're going overseas for the footy trip." And he goes, "Oh, shit." He said, "I'm not coming home for a month."
Oh, that's unbelievable.
He did not give a shit whether we won, lost, or whatever. He said he was not going home.
He's a character. And I tell you what, he's just that quiet person in the corner. But geez, you don't want to start drinking with him, because Rowan's fine, but you're non-compos mentis. He goes all right, just quietly.
Jack was always hot on Sunday morning training. He'd say, "I don't care what you got up to the night before. You can rock up in your clothes that you were wearing, but you'd be here before 9. Okay, that's the rules. 9 o'clock, I shut the door on you." And he was true to his word. And Rowan knew this, so Rowan would say to me, "Now listen, when you get to training, you see my car, just look in the back seat." And he said, "If I'm in there, knock on the window, get me up." So I come past many a day and just check and see if he was in there or not. And many a time he was. And he'd come in, and Jack wouldn't care. He'd go, "Get him some shorts or something, will you?" And and we get the week begun that day. He reckons we go for a jog, get it out of our system. Boys who would normally not get their injury seen to get onto that early, and everything starts the process again. And I loved it. And some of our Sunday mornings, as much as it was painful waking up sometimes with hangovers, it was like, you know what? I love the Sunday morning feeling, especially when you won. You get to talk about it again. You're with your mates. You have ice, and they'd always put a breakfast on. You know, you pay $5 and get bacon and eggs, and we'd sit there and, you know, what could wind up into another session anyway. So it was always a really good bonding day for us, and I think went a long way to us being so close.
Now, too, Tim, now you've been in the media now for a long time, and let's go back. There was the time there where Port Power kept losing in the finals, and you used to get a caller quite convincing each year as Anna Kournikova, because Port had lost in straight sets again.
Yes.
Hello, it's Anna Kournikova here. And let's just say Tim was ready. If he could have killed me through the phone at one stage, he would have done it.
Yeah. You know what? As much as that might have rolled me, you know what? There was a moment where I could have jumped through the glass at the MCG. And you know me, Malcolm, I don't shove anything in anybody's face. I never have. I'm not that sort of bloke.
Yep.
And I'd say John Cale's probably one of the most humble and gracious blokes, depending on whether he won or lost.
Yep.
Well, John and I were working for Triple M Adelaide, and we were part of the commentary team that went over for the 2003 prelim between Collingwood and Port Adelaide. Collingwood beat us quite convincingly, and we heard this massive smashing on the window, and I turned around to see Eddie Maguire and Dermot Brereton doing the choker hold around their neck to me and Jack.
That's pretty dumb. Wow.
And I just looked at him and I looked at Jack and I said, "Can you believe this?" Yeah. And I just looked back at him like that. And I think the look on my face made him sort of go, "Oh, yeah, they're not laughing at that." And it was like, I just could not fathom that two grown men of that stature could behave like that at that moment.
I do admit too, what your TV broadcast, my favourite is 2014, where you got very, very frustrated with Kira McGuinness dominating the game, and I reckon you might have made a move if you'd been coach. Let's say that came through pretty strongly, and I did enjoy that, Timmy G.
I'll tell you, Pierce Seymour plays very similar, doesn't he?
He did yesterday. Yeah, he had a great game yesterday.
Yeah, he was very good. So, yes, I tell you what, you have those moments, and that's footy's a bit like life, isn't it? You have these incredible, exhilarating moments, and you have these incredibly disappointing moments, but they all teach you things in life, don't they?
Yep.
Mate, we will get you out of here on this one. Like we like to do with most of our guests, we like to ask them, who are your toughest opponents that you played on, and maybe top 3 or top 4. I know there's probably too many to name, but there's probably a couple in there that stand out.
Yeah, look, I think just the best rover, I reckon, probably since the war is John Platten. It was just a pleasure to watch him.
Yep.
I only played a few years against him before he left, and I just thought he had everything. He had speed, he had courage, he could jump high, he could kick long, he could take screamers. He had everything I didn't, so he was amazing. So I think that he's definitely the best rover I ever saw play, which was obviously my primary position. From there, just in lateral life, I got to play. They wanted me to play as like that kick behind player rather than the rover who goes forward of the ball. So I played in my latter years, probably my last 4 behind the football, and had to stand Gary a lot. Number 14. So had a lot of respect for Gary, just as an opponent, as a player, fellow captain, you name it, and just loved the way he went about his work. And I always thought, people always say, "Oh, he's tough and he's hard and all the rest," but I always say Gary's one of the most skilled players I ever played against.
Oh, bloody his hand.
By hand and foot, just amazing. So, yeah, he was exceptional, I think, in that as a direct opponent. The guy I had the most trouble with, and there's two back pockets that absolutely used to peeve me off for different reasons. The first one was your Froggy Murdoch. I've never met a bloke so dedicated to sacrificing his own game to stop yours. And I don't know if in my whole time playing against him, if I've maybe kicked one goal. He was just unbelievably
Don't
dedicated.
worry, Froggy. This will be front and centre on Froggy's Facebook page. Don't worry about that.
So yeah, he and it's a credit to him. He really was dedicated. The other back pocket that I, for a totally different reason, I had trouble with was Ross Gibbs.
Yeah.
He would not stand anywhere near.
He just ran on the ground, didn't he?
And I'd be thinking, oh, you beauty, I kick goals. What would happen inevitably, the ball coming on, next minute he'd be standing on my head taking a hanger.
Yeah.
And I used to think, what the? Yeah, so he was really frustrating. I know, talking to Rowie, he said, oh, Gibbsy. He said, I never got to go on Gibbsy. He was a nightmare. Yeah. So, yeah, it was funny how you had some players you just matched up on beautifully and thought, yep, I'm going to have a day out here. And then others you just thought, oh, geez, this not this bloke again. So I had a lot of, and I could keep going for a million years and name a million blokes, but I just loved, the guys that were just hard at it and just, Roger Gurdon from Central's had a lot of respect for because, he just always gave you a context and you knew if there was a 50-50 ball, Roger's not pulling out, I'll tell you right now. So I love that stuff and it was good. I was over many, many eras. I admired the way in my early days of the setups that, Keith Thomas and Neville Roberts would work out together,
yeah. And of course, you're only as good as your last game, though, Tim, in terms of that. So obviously, Nord and Port yesterday, you bloody beauty, Liam Robinson.
7 points, and how's the irony?
Yeah.
It was a 7-point result at Alberton, so that's amazing. I thought that was incredible, and I saw bloody Dale Fleming after the game, and he said, "Oh, we got the cup, Timmy." I said, "It's a draw, you idiot." And he said, "We're keeping it." I said, "You're making the rules up as you go along."
we're the holders, so we keep the cup. Yep. Still the most important trophy in world sport.
I love it. Excellent. All right, boys, I better fly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, mate, we'll finish off on this one. Obviously, your media commitments with Triple M there initially, but now you're currently with 5AA and commenting with Rowie.
Managing to put up with Rowie. That is your greatest achievement in life. Bugger Ange, mate.
I was at Nordo. I thought if he's going to get any love, it's going to be here. And if I had $1 for every person that said, "How do you put up with our Rowie?"
So, for our listeners, Timmy G and Rowie are on 5AA weeknights between 4 and 7. Is that correct? Yep. And
that is correct.
Yep, and if you want to catch up with that, by all means, listen to Timmy G. And thank you once again, Timmy, for your time.
Now I've got Andrew's number. I'm going to give her a call, and we're going off to Bojangles. Thanks, mate.
Good on you, boys.
Thanks Timmy.
For that.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, mate.
Bye.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.